Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to learn something very important. We're going to learn how to factor quadratic trinomials, all right? And we're going to show two methods, a long method and a short method. Why would we want to do the long method? Because it's going to help us a lot in the future. And then once we understand the long method, we're going to jump to a shortcut that you'll really appreciate. Anyway, this is what we're going to do. Here are the instructions on how to factor a quadratic trinomial. By the way, this is a quadratic trinomial in standard form. Remember, A, B, and C are just numbers. And let me do this one for you using the notes. So teacher does it. Here are the notes that are right above, but I put it right next to us so we could see it better. Everybody please follow along. Step one is to multiply A times C. Now remember, this is a standard form quadratic trinomial, which means the A value is 1, the B value is negative 2, and the C value is negative 24. So what is A times C? AC. What is A times C in terms of this guy times this guy? A times C. Okay, you guys aren't seeing it. A is 1 times C, which is negative 24. What do we get? Negative 24, thank you. So this is the answer to step one, right? It says right here, step one, what is it? Multiply A times C, get a number. Everybody with me on step one?
How do we know what A is 1 though?
Notice that there's no number in front of the x squared. The leading coefficient is 1, right? If you had a 6 right here, then you would say 6 times negative 24, you get a huge number, right? If it were a 2 times 20, negative 24, you get a negative 48. So if there's no number, you automatically assume A is 1, okay? I mean, you know, not assume, you know. Yeah, there's always an A. Even if there is no A, the A is 1. Okay, so do we understand step one? Multiply A times C and you get an answer? Yeah. Okay, step two. Think of the multiples of that number, negative 24, from step one, that combine to give you B. That combine to give us this middle value, negative 2. So what times what is negative 24? That combines together to give me negative 2. And it says right here, tip, make a list. You know what? Even if you could see it right off the bat, let's make a list, all right? Check it out. This is step 2. Let's make a list. How could I get negative 24? Well, negative 1 times 24, that'll give me negative 24. Negative 2 times what will give me 24? 12, that'll give me negative 24. How about negative 3? Will negative 3 work? Negative 3 times something? Negative 3 times 8 gives me negative 24. How about negative 4 times something? Negative 4 times positive 6 will give me a negative 24. Negative 5 doesn't work, and if I go negative 6, I'm already back to negative 6 times 4. But those are the 4 possibilities of multiplying to give me the answer negative 24, besides changing the negative to a positive and the positive to a negative. Do we all agree with that? That is my list. Now, let's go back and do step 2. Which of these pair of numbers combine to give me my B value, negative 2. If I combine, and it's kind of weird because we're supposed to be multiplying, but if I go negative 1 plus 24, I get 23. Is that middle value 23? No. If I combine negative 2 and 12, what do I get? I get 10. Is that middle value 10? No, it's not. If I combine negative 3 and 8, that'll give me 5. Is that middle value 5? No. How about negative 4 and 6? If I combine that, what does it give me?
4, 2.
It gives me a 2. It gives me a positive 2. Now, that's a 2, but it's supposed to be negative. So I have the right numbers. I just have the wrong signs. So let's switch the signs. Instead of a negative 4, I want to make it a positive 4. And instead of a positive 6, I want to make it a negative 6. And this is the correct answer, the pair of numbers for step 2 that we're looking for. Remember, step 2 says, think of the pair of numbers that combine to give you the B value. So the B value is negative 2, and positive 4 minus 6 is negative 2. Step 3, this is the confusing part. Rewrite your B value, rewrite this middle term as these two numbers from step 2. It says rewrite your B value as those two numbers from step 2. Thus changing your trinomial to a polynomial, 4 terms. So I want to rewrite the whole thing. My first term is x squared. Here's step 3. The first term is x squared. My second term, instead of negative 2x, I'm going to write that negative 2x as positive 4x minus 6x. Positive 4x minus 6x. You know what? Let me do it a different color so you guys could see. positive 4x minus 6x. That is the same thing as negative 2x, because if I add negative 4x and positive 4x and negative 6x, it'll give me that middle value, negative 2x. And I still need to write my c value of negative 24. I want to put that right here at the very end. I should probably do that in black. So I have successfully changed a quadratic trinomial to a polynomial. Why the heck would I want to change 3 terms to 4 terms? Anybody?
So you can split it and then do that one thing.
So you could do that one thing called factoring by grouping.
Yeah,
From yesterday. Exactly right. So now that we have a polynomial, 4 terms, I am going to, and it says right here on the steps, it says step 4, factor by grouping. So we're going to do step 4, which is factoring by grouping. First 2, x squared plus 4x, leave some space, minus 6x minus 24. From my first group, what could I pull out? An x. What do I have left on the inside? X plus 4. Bless you.
Thank you.
How about the second group? What could I pull out of the second group? What's in common in those 2 terms, negative 6x? A 6, right? But it's better to do a negative 6, because if we pull out a negative 6 on the inside, we will end up with a positive x and also a positive 4. And that's what we really want. We really want that common binomial in the first group and the second group, so we could actually pull it out. So my final step is to do exaggerated parentheses, put that common binomial out here in front, and what's left over on the inside? X minus 6. So the correct size parenthesis would be x plus 4, x minus 6. It's a long process. It's confusing. There's a shortcut, but I'm not going to show you the shortcut yet. All right, I want you to really understand this. I want you to really understand this and know how to do it. That was the first time you've seen it. Let's do it again. It says with the partner. Let's just do it all together here. Step 1. What does it say? Step 1. What do I do for step 1?
You do
A times C. So what is A times C?
1 times 36.
Yep, which is 36. Step 2. Think of the multiples of 36 that combine together to give you the middle value B. Now, what I want to do here is make a list. That's what it says on the step, make a list. So I want to go with 1 times 36. 2 times, what's half of 36? 18. How about 3? 3 times something, give me 36. 3 times 12. How about 4? 4 times something, give me 36. 9. How about 5? 5 times something? No. How about 6? 6 times something? 6. Do you guys see how I made that list? I started with the basic 1 times something, 1 times 36, 2 times something, 3 times something. I went through all the numbers, which you will get good at. And if you're not good at multiplying, you always could use a calculator. Anyways, the 5 didn't work. So out of all those possibilities, the 1 and the 36, if I combine 1 and 36, I'll get 37. Is that B value 37? No. If I combine these, I get 20. Is that B value 20? No. If I go 3 and 12, that gives me 15. That's not 15. 4 and 9, that gives me 13. And the B value is 13, but it's negative. So I have the right numbers. I just have the wrong signs. These are the right pair of numbers. I just need to change the signs of those numbers. So what am I going to put? I'm going to put a minus 4 and a minus 9. After all, a negative 4 times a negative 9, that will give us the answer 36. And if you combine them, it does give you negative 13. Step 3. So this is the correct pair of numbers for step 2. Step 3 is to change your trinomial to a polynomial. Let's rewrite the whole thing. X squared. Now, instead of our B value of negative 13x, I want to change that negative 13x into 2 terms. What are those 2 terms going to be? The negative 4x and the minus 9x. And yes, you need x's, right? Because this middle term really was a negative 13x, and this right here is really negative 13x. If you go negative 4x minus 9x, it takes you back to the negative 13x. Let's bring down this plus 36 at the very end. And once again, I have successfully changed a trinomial to a more complicated looking polynomial. Now, why would I do that? Because I could factor by grouping now. So let's go and factor by grouping here. The first group, x squared minus 4x, leave some space on the second group, minus 9x plus 36. What could you factor out of the first group? X. What's left on the inside? Minus 4, okay. What could I factor out of the second group? 9, but what's better than 9? Negative 9, right? Now, if you just pulled out a 9, you'd end up with a negative term right here, and we want it to be positive. So if you pull out a negative 9, you really will just have an x left over on the inside. And what else will we have right here? A minus 4. Perfect. And that's what we wanted. We wanted a common binomial here and here so we could pull it out to the front. So I'm going to do my exaggerated parentheses here. I want to pull out that common binomial of x minus 4 to the front. What's left over on the inside? The x comes down and the minus 9 comes down. So there's your answer, guys. We have x minus 4 in parentheses times x minus 9 in parentheses. It takes a long while. Step 1. A times c. What is a times c here? 1 times negative 32, right? That gives us negative 32. That's the answer to step 1. Step 2. Think of the multiples of negative 32 that combine together to give you the middle value b. Make a list. How can I get negative 32? Negative 1 times 32. Wow. Negative 2 times what will give me negative 32?
Negative
16, right? Half of 32 is 16. How about negative 3? Will negative 3 work? Negative 3 times something give me negative 32? Nope. How about negative 4? Negative 4 times something give me negative 32?
8.
Negative 4 times 8. Okay, perfect. And negative 5 doesn't work. Negative 6 doesn't work. That's about it. Those are the only possibilities. And there's only 3. Well, 8 works, but we already have 4 times 8. So it'd be silly to go 8 times 4. It's the same thing. Anyway, out of those 3, which pair of numbers combines together to give me the middle value negative 4? Negative 4 times 8. If I combine that, that'll give me a positive 4. But I want a negative 4. So I have the right numbers. I just have the wrong signs. So let's change that negative 4 to a positive 4. Let's change that positive 8 to a negative 8. Then this is the correct pair of numbers in step 2. Step 3 is to rewrite the whole thing. X squared. But instead of minus 4x, I'm going to write it in terms of this 4 and minus 8. So instead of minus 4x, I'm going to write it as a plus 4x and a minus 8x. And at the very end, we have the minus 32 that comes down. So we put minus 32 at the very end. We have successfully changed our 3 terms to 4 terms. And now I'm going to factor by grouping. I'm going to split it. X squared plus 4x, leave some space, minus 8x minus 32. I'm going to factor from my first group. What could I pull out? X. What's left? X plus 4. What could I factor out of my second group so I could end up with the same binomial x plus 4? A negative 8. That way you end up with that same exact x plus 4. And now we take a step back and factor out that common binomial. Here are my exaggerated parentheses. Here's my common binomial of x plus 4. On the inside, what do I have left? X minus 8. And there's my answer. X plus 4 times x minus 8. Done. Now, if you understand that, that's great. And you deserve a shortcut. Check it out. Let's go for the shortcut here, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, it takes a really long time to do these types of problems. There is a shortcut. Shortcut to factoring quadratic trinomial ax squared plus bx plus c when the a value is equal to 1. The a value has to be 1. In other words, you cannot have a number out here. If you have a 6 out here, you can't do this shortcut. If you have a 2 out here, you can't do this shortcut. But if there's a 1 out here, if there's no number, you're going to be able to jump right into the answer format, put parentheses, and put an x and an x. And all you have to do is think what times what is a c value that if you combine together is a b value. Check this out. Let's jump right into it. The teacher's going to do it. because there is no number right here. Because there is no number right here, I am able to jump right into my answer. X, X. And all I have to do is think, what times what is my C value that if I combine together is my B value? So what times what is 24? Well, you got 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and that's it. And notice that I went, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't work, and that's all there is. Now, which of those pair of numbers combines together to give me the middle value, negative 10? If I combine 1 and 24, I get 25. That's not negative 10. That's 14. That's not negative 10. This is 11. That's not negative 10. 4 and 6 is 10. That's what we want. We want 10, but we don't want positive 10. We want a negative 10. So we have the right numbers, just the wrong signs. Make them both negative. And guess what? We're done. Because all I have to do is take the negative 4 and write it right in here. Take the negative 6 and write it right in there. And that's it. If you were to do the other method, step 1, A times C, get a number. Think of the multiples of that number. And at that point, you'd have to rewrite the middle value with these two numbers. And then you make it factoring by grouping. It takes a really long time. When your A value is 1, you could jump right into the answer format. Let's do this one right here, right below. When the A value is 1, you're able to jump right into your answer format. Now, this makes sense. Why? Because if this were a 6, you would not have an X and an X. You might have a 2X here and a 3X there, because 2X times 3X is 6X squared. If this were a 6, then this might be a 1 and this might be a 6. So the only way you could do this shortcut is if your A value is 1. So how about this guy? It's so easy, we should already know the answer. What times what is 5? That if you combine together is negative 6.
1 times 5.
It's 1 times 5, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
But if you add those, do you get negative 6?
No, it's negative. It's negative 1.
So change them to negative 1 and negative 5. Everybody please put a negative 1 in here, a negative 5 in there. We're done. We're done. Yeah, all that work that we did before, why didn't you just show us the shortcut, right? Why do we mess with all that long process?
Yeah, that's a good idea, because you could tell that when you were showing this steps 1 through 4, it was pretty quiet and everybody was actually like, this is impossible, and they were trying to understand. If you did this first, nobody would have cared.
Yeah, exactly. If I showed you the shortcut first, nobody would care about learning the long method, right? So at least you guys saw 3 examples of it. You guys kind of understood it. Go ahead and use the shortcut. You don't have to do the long method. So again, shortcut. Set up your answer. Answer format. X right there, X right there. Again, the only reason you're able to do that is because there's no number here, because X times X, when you start distributing, is X squared. If you had a 4 right here, you can't do this. Have a 3 right there, you can't do this. Negative 2 right here, you can't do this. The A value has to be 1 in order for you to use the shortcut. All right, so think of the multiples of 54. The C value that combine together to give you the B value. So how can I get 54? 1 times 54.
6 times 9.
2 times 27. 6 times 9?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the right pair of numbers, right? So if you see the right pair of numbers, even without doing the list, you don't have to make the list. Like you said, 6 times 9, that gives us 54. And if I add them together, it gives me 15. So plus 6, plus 9, I'm done. This one. Answer format. Parenthesis, 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 x, x. What times what is negative 8 that if I combine together is negative 6? Let's make a list. Negative 1 times 8. Negative 2 times 4. And negative 3 doesn't work. That's it. Those are the only 2 possibilities besides changing the signs. If I go negative 2 times 4, that will give me negative 8. But when I combine them, that gives me 2, not negative 6. And even if you change it to positive 2 and negative 4, they either give you negative 8, right? Like, let me actually do that. Check this out. Positive 2 and negative 4, yeah, that'll give me a negative 8. But if I combine them, I'm still not going to get a negative 6. I'm going to get a negative 2. Not factorable.
That was high school.
That was just testing.
So it doesn't matter which way you slice these guys, right? When you're thinking what times what is a C value, -8, that if you combine together is a B value, -6, it doesn't exist. It's not factorable. So we're done right there. All right, how about you guys jump right into it? Try it. So since I need to factor all these, this is what I want as an answer in factored form. And I'm going to think what times what is 1 that if I combine together is -2. Well, that would be, the only way you could get 1 is 1 times 1 or -1 times -1. So that's what it is, -1 times -1. What times what is 12 that if I combine together is -8? Oh wait, you're going for the other one up here? Okay, 2 times -5, that's a correct combo. 2 times -5 is -10. And if you combine that together, it gives you a -3. So let's write that, a +2 and a -5. How about this next one here? What times what is 12 that if I add together is -8? Make a list if you need it. So -6 and -2, right? So -6 and -2. Why is that? Because 2 and 6, if I add it, it gives me a +8, not a -8. So you have the right numbers, you just have the wrong signs. Make it a -2, make it a -6, and you're good to go. Last one. What times what is 56 that if I add together is 15? 7 and 8. 7 times 8 is 56. Add them together, it does give you 15. Easy peasy. Now, today, we're not going to have homework, but tomorrow we're going to be able to do 8.6, 1 through 18. So you're probably wondering, why the heck did you show us the long method if we could do the shortcut?
So we always have a backup, right?
No. Because look at this guy. On this guy, you cannot do the shortcut. Why? Because when you start distributing x times x, it's not 6x squared. So if your a value is not 1, then you can't use the shortcut. So what we need to do here is the long method. Step 1 would be to multiply a times c. That would be 6 times -3, that's -18. Step 2 would be to think of the multiples of -18 that combine together to give you the middle value, -7. So -1 times 18, -2 times 9, -3 times 6. Which pair of numbers combines to give me -7? 2 times 9, but that'll give me a +7 with those signs. So I need a -7, so I'm going to change the signs, make that a +2 and a -9. And then we go to step 3 on the long method, which is rewriting the whole thing, 6x squared, but instead of -7x, I'm going to write it as +2x minus 9x. That's really -7x after all. And then the last term, the -3, I bring it down. And now I could factor by grouping. First group would be 6x squared plus 2x. Second group will be -9x minus 3. In the first group, I could pull out the GCF of 2x, and what would I have left on the inside? A 3, an x, and a +1. The second group, what could I pull out? A -3 is better than 3. That way you will end up with the same exact binomial 3x plus 1. And then you could make some exaggerated parentheses, take a step back, pull out that common binomial, the 3x plus 1. What do we have left? We have the 2x and the -3. Ladies and gentlemen, we have factored. We can't use a shortcut, but we factored with the long method. 3x plus 1 times 2x minus 3 is the factored form of the original. If you distribute and combine like terms, you will end up with the original. That's why we learned the long method. We do not have to do this long method this week. We will have to do it next week.